There you go. Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 219. As always, to give people a bit of a chance to get in, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need. To wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wall. Your new gods sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made vain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that heed and folly? Bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of servant sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall weigh your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come thou to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age would give what wisdom the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was the excellent Chris Gard. Please go and check out his YouTube channel. He has some very good music. Good evening to my guests so far this evening, Aaron Hook and Hitman. How are you going, gentlemen?
I'm doing well, thank you. I've not been on in a while, so it's good to be back.
Nice to have you back. Aaron, how are you going?
I'm all right. Nothing to complain about.
You're in the middle of moving, aren't you?
I moved last Sunday, so I've got.
So you're in the unpacking stage, then.
Well, actually, most of that done. Most of that is done. All my books are unpacked, which is the biggest thing. So it's just bits and pieces at the moment. So I just got to sort out.
Yeah, I have to say I hate moving it, and it is the unpacking bit which takes ages. But yeah. All right, gents. I'm going to start with you, Aaron, purely because clockwise. Did you have a first subject for this evening?
Yeah, I thought the subject would be the Supreme Court ruling, which in the UK has banned trans people from single-sex spaces, and has been seen as a great victory. Though it's a victory in a battle that the feminists started in the first place.
Go for it, mate. You carry on.
Yeah, they essentially all the trans laws have been claiming that men who identify as women have the right to be treated as women and as biologically female. And then this case started in Scotland, finally got to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court justices looked at the Equality Act 2010 and saw that the law said that what counts as a woman is based in biology, and they simply stated that. So almost everything in the past sort of, let's say, 10 years about sort of gender stuff has been technically, in a technical sense, illegal, because the law since 2010 hasn't been any different. And so you've had the trans stuff obviously comes from the feminist movement, because they spent from the 1970s denying the biological difference between men and women, and then, as I said in the previous stream, the feminists kicked the doors off the hinges, and then following in their wake were the trans activists. And so the trans activists came up through the feminist movement between 2010 and 2020, and half of the feminist movement have been supporting them, the other half, when the TERFs have been opposing them, and the TERFs are the ones who got this victory by getting the law, by sort of taking this case right to the Supreme Court and getting the Supreme Court to simply restate what is the present law. So it's a circular forest squad almost in what's going on.
Hey, man, what do you think about that stuff?
Well, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit negative on it because I don't really see this as a victory for the right, quote unquote. So it's just really, all these people are saying all the woke's being put away, and it's like, no, this is just the victory of one progressive faction over another. This is a victory for the feminists and not the trans crowd. I mean, and that's what people need to take away from this. This still means that, they're still going to be very anti-male, the feminists. It's still going to just see us all as, defective people. And until that is overcome, there's no real victory.
Yeah, my view entirely. The likes of that woman who wrote the Harry Potter books, I can't remember her name now, but who's a big TERF, she spent all her life trying to remove every single male space that she could possibly find. And then when the same thing started happening to women because of this trans nonsense, she didn't like it. She's not my ally. She might be like, I don't want my wife or my sister or my daughter to have to share a bathroom with some extremely mentally ill male who thinks, he's a transvestite or whatever. I don't want that. But you know what? Men and women should be allowed their own spaces, is my view. But yeah, that's what I think about that stuff. You guys have different opinions? I don't know.
Well, the only thing I can think of was it was last year, I think. There was that exclusive gentleman's club in London. I can't remember the name of it now, and it was forced to take female members for the first time. And great, that's just been ruined now, hasn't it?
Yeah, that was a Garrett Club. Yeah.
Garrett Club, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. If women can have their own spaces, which I absolutely think they should be allowed, why can't men? It's just insane. And this is my whole issue with J.K. Rowling and people like this. They don't agree with men-only spaces, but they want women-only spaces. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it should be pointed out that J.K. Rowling she's constantly accused of being right-wing by the trans activist. She isn't. She's an ardent supporter of New Labour.
She's a huge lefty. I know that, mate. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can support her in the sense of like I said, I don't want my wife or my mother or my sister or my daughter having to spend their time in bathrooms with weirdo men pretending to be women. But she's not my ally any other way. She's an absolute lefty.
No, exactly.
Someone in the chat keeps asking about a McGregor interview.
Yes, he was interviewed by Tucker Carlson.
Dude? Is this the Irish dude?
Yeah. He's he was interviewed by Tucker Carlson. Yeah, because apparently he wants to run for that.
Seen it. I haven't seen it. But listen, if he becomes Irish president, I think he'd probably be quite good. But I'm not an Irishman, so.
Well, to put a bit of a dampener on it, the Irish presidency is a bit of a toothless position. It's purely honorary. There's no real power it has. It's a bit like the German presidency or the Italian presidency.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there, Hitman. I don't know. I mean, he seems a pretty good, patriotic Irish guy. So I'd probably vote for him if I was Irish, but whether it will make any difference, I got no idea. Who knows? Any thoughts, Aaron?
Other than that, he'd need to become Prime Minister, not President. The Irish system is similar to ours in the fact that the Prime Minister is the one with the power.
Yeah, the Taoiseach, I think they're called, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the position he should aim at. But of course, he won't get that because he's an individual when he's not a member of a party.
So, Sunny Jim, the one we're talking about is he was interviewed by Tucker Carlson.
Which immediately makes someone a media celebrity as soon as you do that. Although he's been talking about this for quite a while, this McGregor chap. He's an MMA fighter, I believe. Something like that.
Yeah, he went to visit Trump a couple of months the other month as well. So,
I mean, I'd say good luck to him, but whether it will make much difference, who the hell knows?
What's this, Duke Valentino? What do you think of the fact it was held in the Freemason HQ? Oh, that's a bit weird. No idea. I mean, I've not watched the interview. All I know is it's happened.
I'm the same. What I know about the Freemasons ain't worth knowing. Are they some evil group? I have no idea, to be honest.
If they're anything like the British, the United Grand Lodge in London, this probably doesn't mean anything because I know that they went out the lodge to cruise to filming and do documentaries. So it might just be the fact that they had it opened for filming.
I know my grandfather-in-law, like my mum's father, he was a Freemason, and the only thing I ever worked out from them is that very occasionally they'd get you off a minor traffic offence. But, apart from that, I don't know anything about them at all, to be honest.
Well, as we're talking about Ireland, it might be worth bringing up something else that, because in the past week, the Homeland Party announced they'd opened their Northern Ireland branch, and they got a lot of shit from Irish nationalists saying, "How dare you set it up?" Yeah.
Well, okay, but I happen to know some stuff about one of their people there, which is not exactly good, man.
No,
as
yeah, I've
I'm
heard that as
sure
well.
you know. One of these guys apparently went to gay orgies with 3 or 4 other gay men. I'm sorry, I'm not voting for someone like that. I'm just not. I'm just not. I don't understand. Whilst I think that reform are more or less run by hope not hate in many respects at the moment, you've got to you've got to look at your people a bit more closely than Homeland are at the moment, if you ask me. I'm sorry, someone who goes to gay orgies, I'm not going to vote for them. I don't know anyone who will vote for them. I just don't, I have nothing against Homeland, but that is not the sort of people they need. It isn't. And that was being put up in my Discord a week ago, so it's not like it's that hard to find. Yeah.
It just looks bad. Though I will say just one thing. I would advise people not to be surprised the way that the National Party acted like that. Whilst on the British nationalist movement, we should obviously be sympathetic to the Irish, given what they're going through. But never forget, they regard Northern Ireland as theirs, and it isn't. And so any attempt, any organisation, any British nationalist organisation that goes in there is going to get a reaction like that from the South.
Oh yeah, no, I don't disagree at all, Aaron. You're totally right. And let's remember, Sinn Féin is a Marxist organisation, pretty much, and they're all about Brits out, Somalians in. They just are. So I don't disagree with you at all. But if I was the Homeland Party, which I'm certainly not, but if I was, I wouldn't be putting people like that in charge. I wouldn't be. I presumably, if this dude was a Somalian, Sinn Féin would love him. I mean, So there we go. Hitman. Sorry, Aaron, did you have any last thoughts on the turf story?
No, I pretty much said all I have to say.
Okay, Hitman, did you have a first subject for tonight?
Yes, it's a pretty big one. But as we were talking about Homeland, great how all these topics are segueing into each other. They obviously have a conference, I think it's next month, and they invited Renaud Camus to come and give a talk. And the UK government have barred him from entering the country. And so for those who don't know, he's a French writer and philosopher, and he's notorious for coining the phrase the Great Replacement. So you can see why Homeland wanted him and why the government had barred him from entering the country. And obviously it's not great that he's been barred, but honestly I'm not surprised that they've taken that decision. what was interesting is that he was in. Haven't watched his interview, but I know that he was interviewed by. It was on GB News, and it was by Matt Goodwin. So it was interesting that Goodwin decided to interview him. So knowing his penchant for containment, I wonder if that's what his angle was. But I've not watched the interview, so I don't know how he was with Camus. But it's also interesting, isn't it, ING? Because we were talking about this Homeland organizer going to gay orgies. Well, it's also interesting because Camus, because I was doing some research on him because I didn't know much about him other than the Great Replacement, and he's got a bit of a weird, unusual political career or history because he came out as gay when he was 21, and he also was a massive lefty. So he took part in the May 1968 protests in France that led to the fall of de Gaulle. So that's one mark against him. And then he later was a lefty. He supported Francois Mitterrand, the socialist president, in the 80s and 90s. And it's only really in the sort of early 21st century he started getting a bit spicier and talking about the Great Replacement. So it's weird. So on this one issue, he's quite base, but on all other issues, he's kind of a progressive pretty much.
Yeah, don't disagree at all. Man. Aaron, what's your view on this chap?
Well, I've read a bit about him because it happens that his English language translation is done by the Vauban publisher, Vauban Publishing, and I happen to be in contact with him over something else. But as Hitman has said, he has a very unusual political journey to where he is now. But on this issue, I would say he's quite consistent. He's been sort of doing the yeoman work in France since the 90s, and I am actually though genuinely surprised he was banned when he was. I would have thought, given him coining the phrase "Great Replacement," he would have been preemptively banned by the British government a decade ago. So the only thing that shocks me is that it's happened now, not earlier on.
Well, I mean, let's remember what's his name, the chap in Austria who is married to that pretty pettibone girl. I can't remember.
Do you mean Martin Sellner?
Yeah, Martin Sellner. He's been banned from UK for a long time. So they do that all the time. We don't have any sort of free speech in Britain anymore. And, it used to be that in the 19th century, as I'm sure Aaron will agree with me, that all sorts of people who were not popular in Europe were able to come to Britain. And these days, it's quite the reverse because we don't have free speech in Britain anymore. And all sorts of people are banned from coming to Britain, which is quite the reverse of the position that we used to have 120 years ago or so. So, yeah, what would you say to that, Aaron?
Oh, absolutely. We were sort of the refuge for anybody of any political stripe, pretty much after between the Napoleonic Wars and the First World War. Everybody from sort of Italian anarchists to French monarchs, they came to Britain because it was a country where they could go and take refuge, and they wouldn't be arrested, and they were unlikely to be deported back to the country where they came from, because as long as they didn't do anything illegal, which most of them actually didn't. The famous Sydney Street siege was notable for the fact that the people involved who were largely sort of proto-Bolsheviks from Latvia, they actually did commit crimes, whereas most people, wherever their politics when they came to this country, did not step beyond the law, and they understood when they came to this country they were guests and they were being treated well. But if they put one toe out of line, they'd be gone.
Yeah, but we used to have like absolute free speech pretty much in Britain in those days.
Yeah.
You could say anything you liked. You could attack the government. You could attack the monarchy. You could do anything you liked in terms of speech. And so long as you didn't break any laws, that was fine. But that has not been the case in Britain for quite a long time now.
Oh no,
And a lot of people are banned from coming into Britain these days. And these days you have mothers of 2 or 3 kids who get 3 years in prison for tweets.
yeah,
because worth remember, because in terms of people who've been banned, I mean, remember, I think it was in 2018, Lauren Southern, a 20-something Canadian libertarian woman gets banned for being a public danger. It's like, come the fuck on. For sheer public danger. I mean, don't agree with her, but... And
no, I don't like Lauren Southern, but at the time, she was married to an ASIO guy. And like, for anyone who doesn't know, ASIO is pretty much like a cross between MI5 and MI6 in Australia. And that's who she was married to. But she was still banned. It's just insane. It's insane.
And it's more interesting, I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was in the tail end of the Gordon Brown government, but Jackie Smith, the Home Secretary, banned Michael Savage from entering Britain as well. For those who don't know, Michael Savage is this right-wing American political commentator. He's a bit spicy. I'd say not as spicy as someone like Alex Jones. He's not into like conspiracy stuff, but yeah, he's a bit edgy. And I remember he got banned for being like a public danger, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Sadly, it's been going on a long time.
Yeah, no, Britain is in a very poor state in terms of free speech or anything that would be regarded as traditional British, to be honest. I don't know. Any final thoughts on this, Aaron or Hitman?
Yeah, just to say that Mitchie is right. They did also ban Gert Wilder in 2008, fourth in that.
They did. I remember that. Yep, I remember
because
that.
It was 2 members of the House of Lords. One of them was Lord Rannoch, who was one of the former leaders of UKIP, who was supporting him, and then there was Baroness something or other. She's a long, been a long-time campaigner on issues around Islam, and they were sponsoring him to come over, and the Home Office banned him. I think it was Jackie Smith, who was a Home Secretary as well. Can I just say one thing to AI? Yeah, they were from the Baltic states. They were Latvians. In fact, a couple of them eventually went on to serve in the Cheka under Billy Trzynski and were purged and executed by Stalin in the 30s.
Well, for anyone who doesn't know, the Cheka were the precursors, I suppose, to the NKVD, who eventually became the KGB, which the British mainstream media likes to go on about all the time these days, because Russia is just totally evil. Whereas I think the Soviet Union was totally evil, and Russia isn't all that evil at all. But that's just me. Yeah. So fair enough. Anything else you guys would like to talk about?
Just trying to think. So I was going to say something off the back of this about banning people, but I've forgotten it now.
Well, you think about it, and maybe it will come back to you, Hitman. Aaron, anything?
Just trying to think. Difficulty thinking of anything.
I'll just remember what it was. Do you guys remember back in 2016 when we saw David Cameron as Prime Minister? He proposed banning Trump from Britain if he was elected president. And I mean, what an absolutely stupid thing to say. I mean, really. Because we shouldn't be surprised with David Cameron saying stupid things like going to Russia and saying, well, what are you doing about gay rights, Putin? And it's like, oh, just fuck off, David.
It doesn't surprise me, but I don't remember it, but that doesn't surprise me. It very much fits with Cameron, to be honest.
Totally agree. All right, guys. Unless we've got anything else to talk about, and I'm not sure we have, I'm just going to say I fell out with a friend today, and my friend is a full-on supporter of reform. Nigel Farage's by. Now, I don't like the fact that reform seems to want to run their pie, which is actually a company, somewhat like the Chinese Communist Party, so that nobody can have a view that is not totally along with the leadership of reform. I don't like this. I'm an Englishman, and I think I should be able to disagree with people about stuff. And yeah, I don't like this. It made me very unhappy. And I ended up leaving his Discord, not because I was chucked out, but because he said to me, I said, we must agree to disagree. And this bloke said to me, no, I don't agree to that. And I thought about it for a while, and then I thought, well, okay, in that case, I can't remain here any longer because, you know, I might not be able to convince you of my view, but if we can't agree to disagree, then how can we get along at all, you know? And this seems to be the way reform is going at the moment. This Yusuf character, the Sri Lankan Mohammedan, who is their chairman, he's not an Englishman, he's not British, and he never can be. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think someone from Sri Lanka, who is also a Muslim, or even if he wasn't, is never going to get what being an English or British person is. He's never going to get it because it is so different to his home nation.
Well, no, it's just an economic zone for him to invest in and manage in, fundamentally, because that's who he is. He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and not very popular. I mean, you know, I kept getting from these chaps I knew who were reform loyalists, oh, reform has grown enormously, blah, 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 and it's all down to Yusuf. I don't think it is, to be honest. I think most of it is that the British public they've had enough of the uni pie. There's the so-called Conservatives and Labour. They've had enough of that uni pie and they want something else. And I think reform is largely growing because of that. That's my own view. Has Yusuf had anything to do with it? Probably not a lot. If you look at like his company ratings, you go on some of the internet sites where people talk about the company they've worked for. Yusuf has very, very bad reviews. And I keep hearing of senior people in reform who keep leaving. So I don't get this. Oh, Yusuf is a great guy. Sorry, I think he's in a false position just because of who he is.
It also starting to feel a bit like an Indian scam because I don't know if you saw this, Duke, but there was about Reform's membership numbers. There's something very dodgy. It really feels like they're being faked somewhat because there was a guy who was complaining, saying that he tried to leave them months ago, but they won't accept him quitting his membership, and then they keep sending him stuff.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's possibly thousands of people who may be trying to do that, and they're just like, no, we're just going to artificially inflate this because we've got to get an ego boost by, having quote unquote more members than the Tories. That doesn't probably mean anything.
They probably do have more members than the Tories, but that's not difficult because only the very oldest boomers are still members of the Tory party, for God's sake. But yeah, I don't know. Yusuf is in a forced position as far as I'm concerned. You cannot be what he is and be the president of Reform. And, Reform is supposedly a British nationalist party, a populist party anyway. And, it's just ridiculous. Like, Hamza Yusuf could walk into an ancient medieval English church and look at the brasses to gallant old knights and men who in the Navy or the Army helped create the British Empire, and he wouldn't get it. He just wouldn't understand it because he's not English and you can't. And, maybe I'm a racist. I probably am, actually. But you know what? I don't get how Yusuf gets that. And one of the other things I find is quite a good criticism of Reform is that what Yusuf paid to become the chairman, and he did buy his way in, I think it was only about 250,000 quid, wasn't it?
In the chat list, it's 200,000. So yeah. I mean,
that's not a lot of money. It's not like he said to Farage, "Here's 5 million, mate." That's not that much money. Why is this Yusuf character, who I wouldn't trust as far as I could throw him, the chairman of Reform? Don't get it. And if you criticize him to Reform, and by the way, the people I'm talking about, the main person who is my former friend, has an invite to this stream. He can join us if he wants to. But he doesn't, but he can. I did send him an invite. But, you talk to some of these people, and any criticism of Yusuf it's like, you're denying Christ or something. It's just insane to me. There is no way that Britain's enormous problems, which are mostly due to mass immigration, are going to be saved by someone who is himself an immigrant. It's not going to happen. It's crazy.
I guess people just want to unrealistically hope in a dire situation, but no, you have to appreciate the dark situation and just accept it for what it is, because it's pointless just being led up the garden path by Sri Lankan.
Well, Hitman, you're an Arabist, okay? You know a lot about history in the Middle East and all that kind of stuff. And I noticed you've done some stuff in the past on Iran, which of course is not really an Arabic nation, but was in fact invaded by the Arabs during the assorted jihads. Yeah. I'm not sure that if I'd have been an Iranian, a Persian in the old days, that I would have accepted an Arab as the chairman of my party to try and defend Persia. I don't think it would have worked myself.
Well, that's a little bit complicated when it comes to the Middle East, because the problem is Middle Eastern history is dominated by essentially a blend of different minorities and majorities all mixed up together, and so it's a perpetual problem. Because again, at the moment for my Modern Iran series, I'm looking at the Safavids. The Safavids were of Turkic Azeri ancestry, but in their empire, they had Persian bureaucrats, and they had obviously Turkic tribal chieftains in the army, and then they had Lebanese Arabic clergy. So again, it's kind of hard to avoid, really. And if you try to expel minorities, it gets bloody. Just look at the Armenian genocide.
Oh yeah, for sure. Which everyone forgets these days. But yeah.
Oh, just to respond, Duke Valentino, have you read Orientalism by Bud Said? Yes, I have, Duke Valentino. In fact, on my channel, with my good friend Hunger, we did a 2-part stream discussing and absolutely ripping that book just read, because it is really toxic.
Okay. Aaron, what's your thoughts about this stuff?
I think the reason why the Reform Loyalists sort of reacts out angrily to any criticism of Yusuf is because he is essentially an extension of Nigel Farage. He is a loyalist to Farage, and so when you attack him, you're seen as attacking Farage. And so that's, to my mind, why they react so angrily. And when it comes to your friend who you had the one out with, all I will say is, and this is a bit strange given this stream talks about politics, but when it comes to friends, you should never let something as transitory as politics get in the way of friendship. It's just
I agree.
Childish reaction.
No, I agree. I tried not to myself, but in the end, you get pushed, and when push comes to shove, you have to say, well, am I just going to accept this, or will I just say, nah, sorry, can't do this anymore? And I'm a man. My father brought me up as a man. And in the end, I'm sorry, if you want to push me hard enough, I'll just say, no, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it's even weirder when the person is ostensibly on your side of politics. For example, I've got a friend of mine who runs a YouTube channel who is on roughly the left. He and I have had strong disagreements about politics, but that's never brought into our friendship. With some people, they just, like with this chap you're talking about, it seems like they can't get over it. They can't sort of seemingly distinguish. They can't separate the political opinion from the man, as it were.
Look, I mean, I love England and Britain. I love the countryside. I love the people. And I think he does too, but somehow he just can't work out that the mere fact that I don't totally trust Nigel Farage does not mean I'm not a good Englishman,
Yeah.
Which to me is crazy, but whatever. And like I said, I sent him a link to the stream. He's perfectly able to come on, but he won't. And part of the reason why he won't is he's involved with reform, and he's not allowed to say anything the reform don't want him to say, which again to me is a bit of a red flag,
Yeah, very much
certainly.
If you're not allowed to speak openly about stuff, to me that's a bit of a red flag too. Look, listen, if there was a general election next week, I would hold my nose and I'd vote reform. But does Nigel Farage anymore believe in deporting all illegal economic migrants, which is 1 to 2.5 million people? I've heard him say he doesn't. I was told I was a liar, but I've heard him say that on streams where he was interviewed. And people still called me a liar. Well, I'm sorry, but I didn't say that. Nigel Farage did. Farage and Reform were originally committed to deporting all foreign criminals. Again, as far as I've seen lately, Farage has walked that back. Well, you know what? I'd like I said, if there was an election, a general election, don't care about these upcoming local elections all that much, to be honest, because they have no power to change anything that is important for Britain. But if there was a general election next week, I would probably vote Reform. But if I vote Reform and they get into power and they don't do anything to get rid of the vast numbers of illegal economic migrants in Britain, and they don't do anything to get rid of the large numbers of illegal foreign criminals in Britain, even if they do give us net zero immigration, which still means 50,000 people a year coming in because that many British and other people leave every year, that's not going to change anything. What is the point of that? Like, Britain to be saved needs radical action. It really does. It needs radical action. You've not only got to have zero immigration into Britain from the third world particularly, but you've also got to start getting rid of these immigrants. You've got to. If you don't do that, Britain will be destroyed. And that's my point. You guys can say what you think, but that's what I think.
Well, I'm of the view that, if anybody wants to vote Reform, that's your choice. But I personally am not going to vote for them because it's clear that, they're captured and useless and they're not going to do anything. So, but as I said, unlike your former friend, I should say, Iron Duke, I can agree to disagree somewhat.
Exactly. Aaron, what do you think, mate?
I will, as like with you, Duke, I'll hold my nose and vote for Reform. But one thing I will say about Reform is if they do replace the Conservatives as a major party of opposition, they go into government, they won't be there permanently. I don't think they've got the sort of I don't think they've got the will to remain as a sort of permanent party of government or opposition. I think the future sort of party of the British right that will be dominant for the rest of the century is going to come out of a faction within Reform. It won't be Reform itself. So it'd be
possibly, mate. Possibly.
I don't disagree. Similar to some of the people who share sort of views of Rupert Lowe, but at the moment aren't speaking, shall we say.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Rupert Lowe was speaking the truth, personally. And so do most of my friends who are actually on the right. But yeah. Someone in the chat, Davey1602, he's talking about Bored and Bankrupt. I watched the latest Bored and Bankrupt video, and I've watched Bored and Bankrupt for years, right? But this new one is basically a pro-Ukraine propaganda video that I think he was paid to do. That's what I think. Davey1602. And I quite like Bored and Bankrupt for the most part. But this latest video he did in Ukraine, I reckon he was paid for it, and it was just propaganda. That's my view on that. I don't know if either of my guests have seen that.
I don't watch him, no, but I've heard of him.
Some of his videos are quite good, but his latest one, I think, is just a bought and paid for pro-Ukraine propaganda video.
I would say I haven't watched his video and I haven't watched much of him, but I wouldn't be surprised. With channels like his, I've always had the view that they're willing to be bought.
Mitch, who is in the chat, who didn't want to come on today, says Russia banned him. They did, Mitch, but they banned him for the very guy who he met in Ukraine in this latest video, who's always been a Ukraine shill. So there you go. All right, guys. I've spoken about what I wanted to speak about this evening. You guys have anything else you want to talk about?
Not that I can think of, to be honest.
Hitman, anything? Hitman, anything you wanted to?
I think he's had to go away just for a moment.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll wait a minute until he comes back. So yeah, Duke Valentino, you keep asking questions, right? And I could give you loads of suggestions for good Napoleonic movies and what have you. But yeah, I could. But you can ask us a super chat if you want to, if it's that important to you. Otherwise, yeah, go and check out Waterloo, Master and Commander. That's really good. The Hornblower series is pretty good. The Sharp series is probably the worst of those four. But yeah, all of those are worth going and checking out.
And there's the Gun from the 50s with Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra.
Oh God,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
Did you know that's actually based on a C.S. Forrester story? And the C.S. Forrester story is quite good.
Yeah.
But The Gun is one of the worst films you will ever see. But the C.S. Forrester story it's based on is not bad.
And also, actually, speaking of C.S. Forrester, there's I forgot the name of it now. The one about the rifleman. I forgot the name of it. You know the book?
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name, but yeah.
That's worth a read as well. That's reasonably good. One of the things actually, I believe, inspired, along with the Hornblower series itself, Bernard Cornwell.
Probably, yeah. Cornwall's all right, but Sharp is such a simp, which I presume is because Cornwall is such a simp. But yeah, my lady, please, my lady, oh, my lady. God almighty. Not what I regard as someone who was an early 19th century British soldier, you know.
No.
A bit overboard, I'd say. But yeah.
Actually, one book I can recommend, it's a novel. It's called The Spanish Bride. It's by Georgia Taylor. And she's traditionally known as a romantic novelist. Which that book is about the marriage of Sir Harry Smith and his wife. Went from their meeting at Badajoz through to the Battle of Waterloo. And now it's obviously about their marriage. Georgia Taylor was very focused on doing historical actuary writing. She prepared the battles in it. And it's really well done. You get to see the Peninsula campaign from Badajoz right to would have been Toulouse. And then I think there are scenes where Smith is fighting in America and wouldn't have been Toulouse now, but him fighting in Spain, in America, and then back in Waterloo. So that's a book good to read.
Yeah, so Harry Smith was a great guy. An American wrote a biography of him called "Remember You Are an Englishman," and yeah, I'm a big fan of Harry Smith. He once rode into a South African town, and he was the governor of the Cape, and he rode into this little Afrikaner town, and some Afrikaner was going on about how terrible the British were. So Harry Smith got off his horse and knocked him flat. He was not a weak man, Sir Harry Smith. Very, very good guy. And he, of course, is his wife is who Lady Smith is named after, which was in the siege in the Second Anglo-Boer War from 1899 to 1902. Hitman, are you back?
I am, yes.
Anything you wanted to bring up? Because we're not going to do a long stream this evening unless there's a reason to do so. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not that I could remember, no. Someone earlier did bring up the bloody Douglas Murray series of interviews he's been doing, but
for God's sake,
I can't really be bothered. I've not watched any of them. All I'll say is what's been said before. He's a Zionist twat who no one should listen to.
Well, I wouldn't even just say he's a Zionist twat. I'd say he's a Zionist neocon twat. Douglas Murray can be as much of a Zionist as he wants, because I'm entirely neutral between Israel and Palestine and Iran and all the rest of it. I just don't care, to be honest. But because he's a neocon twat, he wants the British forces, not so much the army, but certainly the Air Force and possibly the Navy and the Fleet Air Arm, to get involved in assorted wars for Israel against Iran. And I am totally against that. I don't want British guys to go fight for Israel in the Middle East. I just don't. I'm sorry.
I just want to read a couple of posts Mr. D made recently. And okay, here we go. John D. Douglas Murray is like Pinocchio, a little puppet waiting for Geppetto Berg to come snip off the end of his nose and turn him into a real Jew. Absolutely amazing post.
Not bad, mate. Not bad.
No, and another one from Mr. D on the same day. Douglas Murray stood on the shores of Lampedusa and watched waves of migrants' invasion into Europe and offered nothing more than impotent lament. He watched the invasion of his home country and objected only to the anti-Semitism of the invaders. He cares for benefactors over his countrymen. Yeah, well said, Mr. D. Well said.
Don't disagree. Look, people have said to me, what have you got against Israel? Well, I actually don't have all that much against Israel, but I do remember when they hanged captured British sergeants in 1948, and I do remember when they blew up the King David Hotel. Jewish terrorists blew up the King David Hotel when it was full of British women and children. I do remember those things.
And don't forget Jewish terrorists also blowing up Jewish refugees because, it sets the right narrative.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I said, I'm pretty neutral in terms of Israel and everyone else in the Middle East, so long as they do not want to involve our boys. Our boys have got nothing to do with that, all right? That's my view on this stuff. It's not our problem. Why was the RAF shooting down Iranian cruise missiles and drones aimed at Israel? I've been told by idiots that, Britain has a defense agreement with Israel. Well, Britain has defense agreements with about 200 countries around the world. But in general terms, that does not involve the RAF flying combat missions to shoot down enemy missiles aimed at a third country. It doesn't. They never do. But strangely, with Israel, it does. From Cyprus. And I just don't get that. Duke Valentino in the chat says, was 1/3 of the army Irish? No, mate, you're exaggerating. Okay? A quarter, maybe, but not a third. Anything else, Aaron or Hitman?
No, not that I can think of.
No, I can't think of anything.
All right, guys, I'm going to play us out with a tune. Short episode this week, but you know what? We will be back on Wednesday with a stream I think people will like. It's going to be about the Anglo-Saxon England, but about the Heptarchy and Wessex and Alfred the Great and the Viking invasions. I think it will be really good. So do come and watch that. Mitch and AI are going to be on that stream, and Aaron and Hitman are very welcome to join. And the other stream I've got coming up is on Friday. I'm going to be doing an Anzac Day stream, and I'm going to have some interesting Australians on that stream, I hope. So, yeah, come and check that out, guys. In the meantime, I'm going to play us out with a song.
Oh, Polly, love, oh, Polly, the rout has now begun, and we must go a-marching at the beating of the drum. Go dress yourself all in your best and come along with me. I'll take you to the war, me love, in high Germany. Oh, Willie, love, oh, Willie, come listen what I do say. Me feet, they are so tender, I cannot march away. And besides, me dearest Willie, I am with child by thee. Not fit for the war, me love, in high Germany. I'll buy for you a horse, me love, and on it you shall ride. And no, my delight shall be in riding by your side. We'll stop at every alehouse and drink when we are dry. We'll be true to one another, get married by and by. Oh, cursed be those cruel wars that ever they should rise. And out of merry England press many a man likewise. They press the true love from me, likewise my brothers three, and sent them to the war, me love, in high Germany. Me friends I do not value, nor my foes I do not fear. Now me love has left me, I wander far and near. And when the baby is born and smiling on my knee, I'll think of lovely Willie in high Germany. Oh, Polly, love, oh, Polly, the rout has now begun, and we must go a-marching at the beating of the drum. Go dress yourself all in your best and come along with me. I'll take you to the war, me love, in high Germany.
Well, there you go. That was High Germany, which is a British folk song from the 18th century. And I would just remind people that back then, Prussia was a British ally. But anyway, there we go. Thank you very much to my guests, Aaron Hook and Hitman. Aaron, anything you would like to shill before we go, like your channel?
Yeah, my channel is Aaron James Hook at Gmail. Aaron James Hook on YouTube. And I've actually got 2 live streams coming up this week. One on Monday, where I'm going to be interviewing an author called A.P. Shepherd, and then on Tuesday night, I'll be interviewing another author called Daniel Humphreys.
Cool. I will put your channel link in the description later on. Hitman, would you like to show your channel, sir?
Yes, I've got a series on modern Iran that I'm going through at the moment. Next Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., I will be having my friend Hunger back, and we'll be looking at the mid-Safavid Empire, so Abbas the Great, Safi, and Abbas II, the height of the Safavid Empire. And of course, I do a weekly show every Tuesday called Archival Discourses. I'm not quite sure what the next stream will be this coming Tuesday, but I'll obviously announce it closer to the time.
Cool. Aaron James Hooks, and you do have to put Aaron James Hook in to get his channel, and Hitman's channel. I'll put links to their channels in a pinned comment under the stream in a bit. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Hitman, for joining me this evening. We'll see you on Wednesday for the Anglo-Saxon Alfred the Great stream. Please come and join us. And in the meantime, don't let the bastards grind you down. Go well, folks.